Ready? We're
Oh
live.
yeah, already.
All right. So, Nick, thanks for making the time for me. I really appreciate it. It's in the middle of the Wednesday, middle of the week, and you probably have a lot going on. So, thanks for making this happen.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. I mean, it's great to connect both virtually and, of course, being an NS2 Serves alumni. So
All right.
as long as I got the time, you got it. So I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy to help out.
Yeah, and feel free to drop off as you need. I know it's the middle of the week, so I don't think full hour can be possible for everybody. So I'm in the middle of the work, so I might even have to jump off myself if something comes up. So we've been doing this every week now since January, with few weeks that we did skip, but we're trying to bring in attention from the audience on this topic, right? What we would like audience to get away from this presentation, excuse me, is this concept of AI machine learning and how it's growing exponentially. And if we were to take advantage of this AI machine learning growth, we will have to do things right and not rush into it, right? So I tend to discuss AI machine learning. I talk about AI machine learning breakdown, but there's so much in the full life cycle of AI machine learning development that I think it's important that I bring that awareness, right? I educate on the fact that, like this this core center that is AI machine learning capabilities, but all around it you have safety, you have privacy concerns, you have security concerns, right? And you have the concerns of how will it impact the end user, not just my end user, rather end users in general, right? Um, so, you know, you've been in the military for a long time. You got out of military. I did military for a long time, and I got out of military. We both experienced the transition, and during that transition, I think we bring in a unique perspective. Is that we joined the military, we got out, and we felt like we're joining the workforce like brand new, totally blind to it. I would say for me, it was totally blind because 9 out of 10 years I was in the uniform, uh, I did 9 years overseas, and being overseas kept me pretty much away from what goes on into the workforce, right? Um, and jumping into the workforce, I didn't really realize how to navigate that new types of employment or new source of knowledge that I will need in order to perform very well. John John says, "Aye, aye, rah, rah, rah." Thanks, John. um, and especially, yeah, well, yeah. Look, I'll transition into AI, but at first it was the workforce that I had to transition into, and then now transitioning into this AI world, it's a bit choppy, it's a bit rocky, right? It's not that easy to just say, "Yep, AI is here. I'm just gonna get into it," right? I think in order to develop that trust with AI machine learning system, in order to develop trust with the capabilities of AI machine learning, we'll have to educate ourselves, right? So whatever it is that I know, I would like to pass it on to the audience as well, right? So Nick, give us some a glimpse into how it is you've experienced your transition, post military.
Yeah, definitely. So again, I think we're on the same page with that, and I want to say the biggest difficulty when it comes to the military and coming out is the culture. And when I say that specifically, I meant they're more or less focused on security, like national security, securing their technology, things of that nature, along with they have to do stuff with a very low to minimal budget. It's all about taxpayer dollars, right? So if it costs money, even if it's a penny, they have to have a lot of debate about it. Versus in the commercial space, companies will really invest if they think that there's a good outcome, either monetary wise or to develop a product, which again they could use in the future to make a lot of money off of. So, for example, just on your screen right there, NVIDIA, right? Uh, Raise your hands if you're a gamer. I have NVIDIA GPUs. I love them for some time with their technologies. And I want to say in the last 2 years, they have a really big push for AI with their streaming tools. And I forgot what the tool was. I have it on my other computer, but essentially it's meant for streaming on Twitch, things of that nature, YouTube gaming. And they're able to do things to where they could use AI to remove sounds from the background. And they have a nice demo to where, they're like, hey, it's off. You could hear noises, banging in the background. You could hear vacuuming. And when they turn this program on, you can only hear the person's making the content voice. You're like, hey, now you can hear me. You can't hear the background.
Right.
And they even had a update within the last few months to where they have eye tracking. So if you can imagine, right now I'm looking at the webcam, but now I'm looking off at my phone or my desk, whatever the case may be. And they have an AI program to where no matter what you're doing, I could be looking off to the side, but it will use AI to make my eyeballs make it look like I'm looking at the camera. And it is trippy stuff. Of course, it's free. It's in beta right now, from my understanding. And just simple, small stuff like that blows your mind. Along with, I'm pretty sure you're aware of, along with the audience, but Chat GPT.
Yeah.
GPT has been a huge disruptor of many industries the last couple of months since it's been public, and the things you hear about are just insane. So I could go on all day about that,
Yeah.
but
Right.
if you can imagine just the technology industry, along with what you could do with AI and machine learning, and the combination of both has grown exponentially, both over the last decade, a couple of years, even a couple of months. So I can only imagine what's going to happen by the end of this year, what the capabilities are going to be with various tools or things of that nature.
Yeah, let's jump into everything AI machine learning in 1 hour. Let's do it all, right?
Oh yeah, we could do
Yeah,
it.
let's challenge ourselves. Well, actually, let's make it more interesting. Forget AI machine learning. Let's put the whole U.S. workforce and people's workplace and people's ability to work and people's ability to earn income. Let's put that all into 45 minutes, shall we? Right?
Yeah.
Uh, we'll do a horrible job at it, but let's try it. Yeah, I like I said, you have to develop that trust in the system. And look, what you just mentioned about the eyeball and having that eyeball attached to the camera, like you're looking at everywhere else, but the system is able to make it look like you're looking at the camera the whole time. That's deep fake, right? That's the other side of the spectrum where we have to talk about deepfake. Well, deepfake could not disrupt just that, oh, that one time you heard somebody say something that was totally false, right? But it could be that somebody's using that deepfake technology for scamming people, for fraud, for financial schemes, financial crimes, right? The spectrum is so wide. We don't have 45 minutes or 45 hours to talk about these things. So we have to sort of get to the basic of it, right? Level set the understanding of, okay, how do we develop this machine learning technology? And if we have to counter that one machine learning that is deep fake and one machine learning that is actually super helpful, we actually need it. It's sort of like you cannot live your life right. So I think to get to that point, right, we'll have to develop that trust. We have to develop the fact that, okay, not only do we know how it works, but we can predict how it would work with these certain feedbacks, right? And that conversation is a lengthy conversation. We can have that discussion, but let's move on to the next slide and discuss a little bit about AI machine learning. Like I said, if you understand how AI machine learning works, you have a little bit in-depth understanding of how it works, the hidden layer, the black box. You understand that. It gives you a little bit more of like, okay, I can predict that. So that's what I'll try to do on my next slide here, right? I want to share a. By the way, I see. Okay, John, I see your link. John Cage, Eventigrade. Okay, cool. Have to check that out. Definitely. If listen, anybody who's listening into this conversation, I don't know who it is participating. So these comments are great, right? So that way, it's not a TED talk between me and Nick. Rather, it's a conversation we can have. Like, please feel free to drop any resources you have or questions that you have. So that way, me and Nick can discuss that because, like I said, it's not a TED talk. I am not just presenting so that way I can bore you to death with it, right? Um, Please do put your comments in there, share resources, and ask your questions, and let us know you're here. Just let us know that you're listening in and what you think about AI machine learning. We want to hear your thoughts. Um, so on the slide, I have data decision optimized. You have to decide how you interact with AI, right? Either you are developing an AI, or you are using an AI, or you will shape the type of services this AI will provide. So whoever it is you are, you have to decide that what sort of data do you have in hand, and what sort of data will you procure in order to have those decisions made. I want you to take away this ABC concept, which is that AI, BI, and CI. What that does is gives you this mind-numbing thought that okay, AI is big enough, but it's still not big enough. We still need another sort of intelligence, right? This artificial intelligence, A for answer, right? These artificial intelligence are at this point they're very good with providing you with an answer, and that's great, right? That's what we are seeing with ChatGPT. You give it a prompt and it's able to answer for you, right? Just like Google has been doing for the last 12, 13 years, where it is that you put in a prompt and that prompt is giving you an answer. But the difficulty with this answer is that you have to sift through this answer and figure out, like, okay, you did about 80% of the work. Now I have to still do some more research and more digging through in order to get to the correct format of that answer, right? ChatGPT is much better than Google, but still, ChatGPT, you have to work with it. So if you ask ChatGPT for your code that you're supposed to write, but instead of writing it all from the scratch, you use ChatGPT to give you about 70% of it, right? So that's A for answer. And then B is business intelligence, which gives you an option, right? And these options and answers are not providing you with decisions yet. One that will provide you with decisions is CI, cognitive intelligence, right? The fact that we have the cognitive intelligence as human and the neural network inside of our two ears that's able to help us identify, label, and make decisions and optimize those decisions are the same process in cognitive intelligence, right? We take in the data and we identify, label, and make decisions off of those data. And with those decisions optimized over time, we were able to predict, right, make better predictions. So what happens if you have artificial intelligence? What happens if you have business intelligence? And what happens if you have cognitive intelligence? Cognitive intelligence is the ultimate goal here, right? And right now, if you think about AI, all the AIs that you see are narrow AI. But once you have that capability of saying, look, not only do I need an answer, I need those options mixed into it, and then I'll let a system make those decisions for me, right? Um, that is the pathway towards the future where we're able to optimize the data that we procure, which is very expensive, which is very costly, not only just for business budget wise, it's also very energy consuming, right? It has a lot of concerns that, more data we collect, more data we will waste, right? So we want to be able to optimize in the first mile of the journey. And in the last mile of the journey, we want to get to a point where cognitive intelligence like AI will make decisions for us. So it will provide us with an answer, it will give us some options, and it will make that decision for us. And if you combine it three, let's talk about a use case here. You go to Kayak and you want to go to Maldives, right? Well, Kayak is giving you an answer about how to get to Maldives. A business intelligence is giving you the options on how you will get to Maldives. Cognitive intelligence, on the other hand, will say, well, let me look at your calendar, talk to your boss, take time off, and I'll buy those tickets for you and I'll get you the hotel because I know your preference and how far off the airport you want to stay and how long you can actually afford to stay because I know your bank details, right? Those are the cognitive intelligence level of future AI, right? AGI, artificial general intelligence.
So yeah, definitely. I even have a more technical example that could involve the three as well. So you mentioned Kayak, right? So for my example, network security, and I say that in just a very general concept of a company securing their assets, their network, whatever the case may be. So with AI, there's a lot of tools now either built into a certain tool or companies are doing it on the back end with their own programs and stuff, where essentially they could use AI to essentially understand, uh, what is normal traffic, what is abnormal traffic, and what could be potentially, malware or somewhat of an attack. And there's a lot of tools such as Splunk where you could aggregate all this information, but generally you have to do it manually. So imagine you have a SOC team, they have to go through and manually look at, well, what is out of normal? Let's investigate this, right? There could be false positives. The person can interpret it differently. Well, you could use AI to do all this in a matter of seconds, for example, right? Business intelligence. So along with going with that, okay, we have this traffic, we have this malicious traffic, we have these indicators of compromise, whatever the case may be. Are these critical assets? And of course, if they're going for a more critical asset, such as financial systems or maybe proprietary data, maybe that response will be higher on the totem pole, if you will, or have a quicker response versus if they have uh, just maybe a test server where there's old or not even real information. They just put fake information there to test systems or their tools. And then the third option, uh, you know, okay, we have all these indicators. This may be a critical asset or medium level. Well, what do we do? Do we automatically triage it, which there are tools that do that? Do we automatically flag it for a manual view? And these things can be done almost instantaneously. All three steps I just mentioned, both analyzing, figuring out again what's going on. Could this be a high classified asset, or what do we do? And those things be done instantaneously to help with instant response efforts. So, for example, if there is a verified asset, they could automatically shut certain systems down, networks down to prevent further action, and of course, start like the backup process to um, wipe out whatever could have been done, any malicious code, things of that nature, or again, start fresh. So, again, there are a lot of things that can be done with this in the technical space.
Oh yeah, absolutely. If we are looking at the development cycle, right, the amount of effort that goes into developing these capabilities, you want to have a good use case, and you want to have the data for it, and you want to have a long-term vision, not only for the data and the use case, but how you utilize those use case multiple times, how you utilize this data multiple times in order to capture other use cases, in order to grow that use case to a point that it matches your vision, right? We've talked about data culture for a very long time. I think now with ChatGPT, or even prior to ChatGPT, I mean, the AI has been around for 70 some years. I think we are transitioning into the AI culture at this point, right? You want to develop these AI cultures. These individuals that are sitting on your SOC, they are your key go-to in order to engage them and understand their needs in a daily task and say, how do I develop a digital twin for you, right? How do I develop that digital you so that way you are augmented to do more tasks, right? As in the tasks that are repeatable and redundant and sometimes dangerous. How can I have a digital twin help you do those tasks so that way you can actually do more? As in you are able to use your human cognitive capabilities to actually do better detection, right? Because not AI can all do all not all AIs can do all the things. Human in the loop is very important, and the capability of the AI to perform will be based on human feedback, right? Um, so I think at this point, what I would like to do is, make the distinguish. Let me get the word right. I want to distinguish between AI machine learning system and the traditional system, right? And the reason I want to distinguish that is to show you that it's actually other half of the feedback, right? So far, what we have been able to do with software, right? We were able to perform so well in the last 30 some years, but we're hitting the ceiling, right? And that ceiling feels like half of a feedback, right? As in order to complete that full cycle of this development of software, we need AI machine learning to do the other half, right? So first I will distinguish, but then I'll add why it is that the full cycle continues with AI machine learning. In traditional programming, it is that you are given a task, and that task is what has to be accomplished at the end with an output, right? So if you look at the chicken cooking example, it's that you have to go to a grocery store and you have to pick up all the grocery items and bring it to the kitchen and prepare that and cook that chicken, right? You do the same with AI machine learning. However, with AI machine learning, you're teaching a system how to do all that. And if the system is able to do all that, it's able to create variation by uh, switching out some of the ingredients, tweaking out some of the ingredients to improve that taste of chicken, or add flavor or add the taste that you as a person might prefer, right? For the software, you can imagine it's tad bit difficult because you still have to go back to the grocery stores, and you still have to go through the whole cooking cycle, and find a cook in the chicken like every 3 or 4 hours that you cook. Where an AI system is able to take all of that and say, I'll cook you as many chickens as you like. Just teach me how. Once you teach me how, I will be able to, perform that same task over and over with multiple variation. One day you like Boston market chicken. One day you like Chipotle chicken, but other days you're thinking of your mom's chicken or your grandma's cooking, right? So you have the variation that AI machine learning is able to provide to that. And this is a very high level, silly example, but point is that once you write a code, you're able to deploy that code into the production, and it will break, it will have bugs, it will have some fixes that is necessary. Same as with AI. AI will be productionalized, and it will have all these minor issues that you will have to monitor and trigger your responses for. But if you see the software that you have developed for so long, if you're able to take that software output, as in whatever that coding that you have done and the output of that coding, if you're able to take that and create an AI system on top of that, you are completing the full feedback cycle, right? The feedback is what you started with software coding. It's able to do more and more every day, if not every month and every year, right? It's able to add more value to the software that you have pushed into the environment, and it's able to perform and learn from this performance over time. So let me take a break here and see who's putting out some comments here. I see some comments here. So Nick, does that make sense? Did that do a good job of explaining that very, very fast?
Oh yeah, definitely. And again, I don't do this in depth, with my role and career. I know of it because a lot of these tools, again, either have it baked in, or companies are using AI to assist with their tools. Again, I mentioned the whole network defense type of scenario where tools might have that built in to where they could automatically kind of figure out what are the outliers, what's going on, what's abnormal, and kind of address those situations. And just like you said, it's all about fine tuning. You can't just write a script and it be good. You have to fine tune the script. You have to run it. You have your use cases along with, again, if you're using with the tool for cyber, for example, not only does the tool have to be dialed in, right? You have to know what the false positives are, things of that nature. But then when you add the AI aspect to it, you have to fine tune that and make sure that they're both at a good baseline for whatever you do. And of course, you have to update that at whatever intervals that your company has to deal with. Because if you're making a lot of changes, a lot of additions, that baseline changes all the time. So you have to change both the front and the back end, so to speak, with everything.
Yeah, and the experience over time increases from the user perspective, right? So the user experience is what makes your business a success or a failure, right? So Google, for example, of course, a giant. The Google search wasn't that great if you think about it back in 2012, right? 2022, you're looking at Google like, I don't know what to do without Google at this point anymore, right? I tell a story about how much panic I had when my Google Map stopped working, and so did my Apple Map, right? And Google Map is what I usually use on my phone just to go from my home to the next city over, right? And I was full of panic, right? But that's how much we rely on these capabilities. And if you think about it, Google Map, Google search bars, they're all utilizing machine learning, and over time they're able to perform better and better than the day one of release, right? Same with Google Translation, same with your Apple products, right? That communication with Siri and Alexa, these are all improving over time. And imagine if you had to improve these for hundreds of millions of people using software bug and patching, or rewriting the codes every time you have to create a new requirement, right? Or add a new feature using just all coding, right? It gets very cumbersome. So we are hitting the ceiling at this point, and we want to be able to create a dynamic system that we're able to address any issues right away and address that issue, using AI machine learning capabilities. Let's move on to the next slide. So I mentioned about identifying, labeling, and making decisions. So what does an AI do? AI does the same. I think Nick talked about false positive. So you have that quadrant of true positive, false positive, true negative, and false negative, right? If you look at that quadrant, that's your core of understanding where machine learning will start, right? You're allowing a system to identify what it is that you need the system to identify, right? Now, once it gets good at identifying one, it will start identifying others using that quadrant of true positive and false positive, right? So if a system identifies fire, it has to have the confidence to say it is a fire, right? With high accuracy. So error is a feature in AI machine learning where it will have some error, just like our human brain has confidence of 99% accuracy, but a little bit of maybe it's not that accurate, right? AI machine learning does the same. It goes through a process of identifying and it labels it correctly. And if it doesn't label it correctly, that's when you have all sorts of issues with bias or issues with, perform the wrong action, right? So you want to have that AI system to identify and well trained to label things very properly, or at least with the high accuracy and most confidence. And what that labeling allows it to make a decision, right? And that decision has to happen repeatedly, over and over, for a very long period of time with high amount of human observation, right? So that way, if the human is able to correct the actions that AI will take in order to AI to perform very well over time, right? Just like I mentioned, Google Maps, right? They have increased in their capabilities of detecting the right sort of path for you to get to point A to B. I'm seeing multiple comments here. Yep, John, I see that. Yep, there you got variation test. And what happens once you do have a system that's able to perform very well, right? It takes in data, it goes through this hidden layer or the black box to put out an output for you, right? It's giving you an output, and that output, if it gets good at it after a while, it's able to do prediction, right? So that human capability, we also have prediction capability. If you see a fire, you tend to know that fire has some heat around it without having to think through like what is fire and how does fire work. You're able to actually make a prediction that from my last experience, I've identified and labeled it as a hot product, so it's most likely hot in the near vicinity, right? Let's move on to the next slide. Okay, so there's a bunch of numbers that's going to come out. So Nick, you saw the slide already, but these numbers are not the concern. Concern is the fact that we are dealing with millions and millions of jobs in United States economy, worldwide actually, right? But we'll focus on U.S. and we will actually get into some specific small numbers, and we want to talk about how these jobs, these workforces will be impacted. Right. I don't tend to focus really on the negative side of the concerns. Right. What I would like to focus on.
You should have used AI to silence that phone. It should have known that you're on a call, and it should have automatically silenced your phone.
You would need a digital twin to do all that. And I would highly recommend anybody who's not working on digital twin to get to that digital twin so they can sell it to me and I'll buy it. Yeah, I hope this is all good. Let's see. Give me a second, Nick. I'm just going to send a quick text message here. All right, it can wait. So we will go get down to a smaller number, hopefully. But so don't get intimidated by these big numbers, right? What do we have here? So in US, you have multiple sources of income. If you want to break those down, you can see like not everybody has the same source of income. So everybody has different levels of need, and they are all working from different industry and in different capabilities, right? So it's just not about like, who makes 100,000, 200,000, or millions, right? It's a matter of, how do they generate that income, right? So when we talk about a workforce that is shaping to adopt an AI, we will have multiple levels of challenges, right? Because not everybody produces their income that pays their bills and takes care of their kids or take care of their family or just take care of themselves, right? How do they pay taxes? So all these equations have to be considered in, right? um I try to capture like top 10 industry that employs the most people, but I want to pick specifically the retail trade section, because retail is as many people works in retail, and we're accustomed to seeing people in the retail business very frequently, right? That's why I'm picking the retail one, because if you are interacting outside of your home, most likely you're interacting with somebody from the retail industry, right? As in, if you're going to 7-Eleven, right? So where do you see 7-Eleven? When you're getting some gas, maybe, right? Or Sunoco or Exxon. And what could be highly automated using AI machine learning in your gas station, right? The cashier that is employed in your gas station could do more if there was no need for cashiers to sit or stand behind the cash register to collect the payment, right? So we have that highly automated already. You just swipe your credit card and it's highly automated, right? But at the same time, these cashiers are given the task of like, hey, keep an eye out, right? Report any incidents or events that are happening. And the cashiers are not likely to, be focused on security concerns in the gas station if they're busy transacting with somebody behind the cash register, right? Because cash registers still exist. So the kiosks are coming into the marketplace, just like McDonald's have kiosks now. The cash registers are being replaced with kiosks, so that way those transactions are very easy to maintain. So those cashiers are taking in the role of more of a security, organizing the shelves, and so on and so forth. Um, the AI machine learning, on the other hand, it's coming in to augment that cashiers, to say, now we can have cameras, and these cameras are AI machine learning capable, which just like our home cameras, we have cameras in the stores that are able to detect activities. And as progress happens, we will be able to detect activity using NLP system like ChatGPT to describe what sort of activity the camera is seeing. So if the camera sees what it sees today, it will just say, oh, there's a person or a dog walking by, versus now it can say this person is having some medical emergency and we need to contact 911 for the purpose of getting some assistance to this person, right? So imagine that digital twin for a cashier to perform his job very well, very effectively, right? And that's just not it. Like, that's not just a security observation, but also to have that store maintained, do you need a system in place that is able to stock and restock the shelves using a robot, right? So that the cashier doesn't have to pick up the heavy weights in order to do his job. And I'm not just putting 7-Eleven into the spotlight. You can just imagine all sorts of retail places where the cashiers are manually operating the store, versus what's coming down the pipe with Amazon stores, right? The Amazon stores, you walk in with your phone and you're able to pick up what it is that you need without paying for it, because your phone already did the transactions for you. You will pay automatically and just walk right out of that store without ever having any interaction with a cashier or needing anybody's help, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I want to address a comment because I have some pretty good insight too. So John mentioned not at Walmart. So there are actually two pretty interesting use cases, I would say, for Walmart for some initiatives. And I want to say they both started about within the last 5 years. So essentially, Walmart has two interesting things going on that use AI. One of them is for stocking their shelves, for example, right? You can imagine there's a lot of different departments. You go to Walmart, there's so many items, there's so many areas, and there's so many things. And it's hard for a person to track, oh, we need to buy these certain phone cords or a certain phone case. Maybe hunting season's coming on, so we need to stock up on certain stuff. they could use AI to understand in the last couple of years what have sold at this period of time with this holiday, this month, whatever the case may be, and automatically in their system start ordering those stuff through their supply chain, for example, right?
Yeah.
The second item is Walmart has some AI only stores. And what I mean by that is you can imagine trucking, they have to use trucks to send items all across the US or the world to get their items. Well, from unloading the truck, they could, of course, stock it in their back room, if you will, their shelves, and tag it, understand what they have on hand, update their internal system, their inventories, along with automating, okay, well, we don't have a lot of these things, whatever this item is on the floor, let's take it out, and it will actually use AI to bring it out to the floor where the person, the associate, could actually stock the shelves with it. So again, those are somewhat new. They're really not out there. I mean, you see the articles online along with their testing in certain stores, but that is starting to be a common thing across Walmart, and a lot, of course, a lot of other stores want to take that idea and run with it. And again, you mentioned Amazon, where there are some individual stores to where you could just go in, and I forgot the whole process. I think you have to scan when you come in or come out, but the cameras could track what you grab, and if you put in your cart, it goes, oh, you put a block of cheese in your cart, you put some soda in your cart, whatever the case may be. And when you walk out, it knows, okay, you took these 5 items, this is how much they are, and it's going to charge your account automatically. So while it's not widespread, that concept is going to, of course, evolve, mature, and as well as they're going to take that one store that might be the test store and have them across more areas or other states or even other parts of the world. So again, it's very in a very infant stage, but I mean, there's a lot of companies that have these initiatives. So it's really
Yeah.
interesting to see how this is going to go.
Amazon Go is on the top list right now for many of these organizations. Like I think Amazon has like thousands of plus companies in line to have Amazon recreate Amazon Go for these stores, right? So that's coming down the pipe for sure. And when we discuss these minimum wage job for the cashiers, one of the concerns is that like, okay, what's going to happen next, right? What happens if they're replaced? I don't actually have a solid answer to the future. I don't have a globe to look into and give you that answer. However, I can identify the fact that it has happened previously. Many of those jobs have previously been replaced, and people have been moved into other jobs, right? Which is a cycle that repeats itself, right? And I'm hoping this time around the positive side of that would be that instead of repeatable, redundant, and dangerous sort of task, those jobs will replace that are replaced with AI will allow the humans to do more creative work, right? And I think that's where I find the joy in discussing AI machine learning, because it probably will allow us to be more creative with our time in the day, and how it is that we earn our incomes, right? We are doing creative tasks in order to earn our income. I think that's the positive side of AI machine learning. So let's move on to the healthcare side of things. Like I said, healthcare is the largest source of income for about 23.2 millions people work in healthcare industry. So healthcare industry, you have some breakdown. Not everybody's a nurse, not everybody's a doctor, but you have multiple levels of breakdown of who does what, and all of these professions will have AI machine learning impacting how they perform their day-to-day task, right? Either to augment them with data or augment them physically, assist them physically to perform their task, right? So when I talked about like a store clerk, a cashier in 7-Eleven or some gas station, you're able to see that artificial intelligence is there to augment, right? That ability to identify, label, and make decisions, and help the human with making those decisions for themselves, or let the AI execute that decision. It's not only time saving, but it also allows us to be creative, right? As in focus on what it is that we actually have to do. So if you look at the nursing and residential care facilities, right? If you had like I said, robots to do the heavy lifting or do some of the chores. You're actually able to focus on that person who's at the end of their lives, and the nurses that are in the facilities, they're able to focus on more of the care for the patient rather than to do the chores around the patient, right? Your focus shifts now only to the patient, and you're able to do a better job of taking care of somebody who's in their vulnerable time of their lives, right? Ambulatory healthcare services. Um, One of the things that's super interesting is that if the ambulance were driving themselves, right, and the person who's in the situation where we don't think about ambulance service all the time unless you call 911 and that's the first time you ever have to get inside of an ambulance and receive services in ambulance, right? And not all the services inside of an ambulance is critical, but when you have a gunshot wound, or when you have like some stabbing, or when you have some situation where you're bleeding out, right? In order to perform surgeries, in order to perform life-saving procedures, it probably is worth it to have AI machine learning sort of capability built into those ambulance, right? Not all ambulance will need that, but if you can think about it, like this ambulance is driving itself, it's driving it very safely, and it's driving very fast speed throughout the city. And I know a lot of people are thinking like, wait a second, that's kind of dangerous. Well, AI machine learning is already working on tracking how to drive really, really fast. Like as in there are F1 racing cars that are being developed with AI machine learning, and AI machine learning is learning teaching itself how to perform in a very fast speed without much of a hesitation, right? Braking when it needs to and brake fast enough, right? So that's just the one part of ambulatory healthcare service, right? Now, if you imagine with the 5G services through your cell phones, the, the the recent development that they showed is that somebody from California was able to operate on a banana uh, in London, right? They're able to execute their surgery, the operations and steps without ever being in London, right? They're virtually remoting in to London and performing surgery on a banana, right? If those were the case that was supposed to happen inside of an ambulance, I just see the future as a place where we'll be able to not only save more lives, but we'll be able to actually shift our focus on what's actually important, right? Rather than to worry about hundreds of different things, we're able to make decisions that are very precise and for us to decide, right? And let these repeatable and redundant tasks let the AI handle it, right? Not saying all by AI, but with the human assist. But then again, if the human doesn't have to assist, because the humans have higher confidence in AI's ability to perform, with higher accuracy, the AI is able to perform. Let the human focus on what it is that we can do, which is to get creative, which is to focus on something more dangerous. If AI is not already not handling that dangerous task.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And I don't know about this specific application, but a good example comes to mind. So I have had first aid training both in the military, out of the military over the last long time. And what I found interesting is the mindset of, when I say like first responder, like basic first aid stuff. Like there's a car accident, you go, hey, what's going on? And you see some stuff. Before they tell you about the ABCs, like clear the airway, do CPR, so many breaths a minute, so many pumps a minute. Well, now the training is, yes, do your CPR, but you do CPR or someone does CPR while you find an AED, plug up the AED, and with AI, it could, I don't say AI specifically, but the general concept of it, but it could automatically understand what's going on. It could read your pulse and say, hey, we do not have to deliver a shock. This patient's okay. And of course, you could plug that into the fire truck or the ambulance, whatever the case may be, and they can know the past of what happened, what are the vitals for this person, and take that forward as they go to the emergency room for further treatment. Along with devices, like you said, it's not going to necessarily remove a nurse or a doctor, but it could do a lot of the processes for them. For example, before getting their pulse and their basic vitals was a manual process. You had to put the little stethoscope on the chest, listen for the heart, look at a clock and say, okay, you have this many beats per second, okay, whatever, and do the math. Well, now you could put a wristband on them, and while that is manually getting that information, They could be prepping to do emergency surgery or even just small level items. But again, it's not they're not doing this to remove the nurse, the surgeon, whatever the case may be. They're trying to do things efficiently so they could get to the saving measures quicker.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Look, removing the human in the loop, it's a very concerning topic, but it's just like horses, right? Horse buggies, they're no longer available every corner you turn into, right? Every corner you turn into, there's a car and there's a driver. Um, Horse buggies were necessarily the best thing around to have because they stink up the whole city, right? But the cars, they have different issues, right? They provide you with the comfort of traveling point A to B, in a fast manner, but it still comes with a lot of concerns, right? It does parking. It takes up a whole lot of space inside of a city, right? That ability to reutilize those places where the cars used to park. You will have a lot more space inside of a city without congesting the whole city up, right? So you have lots of AI machine learning use cases that are coming down where AI will be able to take your car and park it outside of the city and pick you up when you call for it, right? When it's necessary for you to go home or something like that. But there's a time and the time and investment that goes into it, and that's why I think White House has been pushing for lots of AI initiatives and lots of these AI initiatives that are providing guidance for setting up principles and asking the agencies specifically to follow some principles and some guidelines in order to develop AI machine learning for the agencies. So that way, government takes the lead, because the government, if government takes the lead, they're able to invest taxpayer fund, like you said earlier about taxpayer fund, and have it done properly. So that way, taxpayers not only benefited because AI is great, but there's ethical reasons behind it. There's security concerns behind it. There's privacy concerns behind it, and the government itself, using taxpayer money with high accountability, is able to perform those tasks for the taxpayers, right? So right now, there's lots of investments that are happening from White House through executive orders, through Congress, with the funding for fiscal year. We are able to see the shift that we've been anticipating for a very long time. So this is one of those pivotal moment where the year 2022 and 2023 will probably be identified after maybe 2012ish, of what happened during these years that AI was able to do more and pick up steam over time, right? Over the next 4 to 5 years. And this matters. This matters as the investment. The investment is coming from the White House, and investment is coming from giants like Microsoft and Google. They have been researching these topics for a very long time, and they're utilizing their capability to provide services. Now we're pivoting towards the fact that how do we utilize these capabilities that are backed by White House, backed by Microsoft, backed by Google. How do we utilize this for small businesses? How are we able to capture use cases that are very small but not worth spending millions and billions on using AI machine learning use cases, right? I think that's something that we have to start focusing on. Like, how do we have startups understand AI machine learning for their startup, so that way they're not chasing after only coding, but they're also able to figure out, like, okay, if we do AI machine learning, we can get to where we want to get to as a startup faster, right? And with higher accuracy and more dependable product that we will create for ourselves, right? So there's a need to understand what's happening with the investment, not only just AI machine learning. I think AI machine learning is great. There's lots of technologies out there that are using AI machine learning, and there's lots of knowledge that is being shared on YouTube, obviously all for free, for us to learn from. But the investment piece, I think small businesses, startups, or medium-sized business that hasn't yet looked into the AI machine learning for their capabilities, I think time is now, right? Time is early on, early in the game, so that way, like OpenAI, right? 2015, people were like, okay, these guys are not doing much. All of a sudden, 2022, 2023 comes. Within 4 or 5 months, everybody nonstop talking about OpenAI all day long, right? Because they've been at this for last 7 years, last 8 years at this point, right? So I think it's same applies for any business that are looking to AI machine learning development. It's not going to take you 7 years. It probably will be less than that, but it will definitely be more than a year for you to develop a capability that you can, push out to the public, right? Well, if it's chat GPT related product, it probably will take 4 or 5 months, right? I think within the last few months, you've seen how many startups have come up just using chat GPT as an API system to be able to provide their products and services.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I mean, there's so many levels of how you could use all this technology, and I agree with you. Where I believe this is kind of like the golden age. Like right now, there's a lot of availability for it. The access to it is a lot easier, and I believe it's pretty cost effective, I would say. I mean, of course, again, there's tools that have a lot of more features and you pay more money for it. But at any level, there have been people to where they could do little small businesses for little to no cost
Right.
using AI to do a lot of stuff. I mean, what's I forgot what the term is, but it's where they essentially buy stuff in bulk, but they don't keep it on hand and they sell it on Amazon. I forgot what that term is, but there are people to where they're essentially buying stuff using AI, and again, they could do it to make their web page or whatever the case may be. But they could go, oh well, we could buy this item here for cheaper, and Amazon, sells it for more, so we can make a lot of profit off of it. And instead of doing this manually, they're using AI to do this. So there could be a lot of applications both at a micro and macro level. So
Right. Absolutely. The
this is the
spectrum,
time. Get into it. Yeah.
this is the time to get into it because the spectrum is so wide, and to perfect your services and your capability, it will take months. But at the same time, I think it's important that we understand not only how the AI works, so that way we don't focus on one specific topic, but we are able to expand on multiple business lines and say all of them are interacting with each other, and they're running parallelly and able to provide great services, and people are the user experience is highly well rated. How about that, right? The user experience is great, because nothing these days works without good user experience, because users have other options, other places to buy or interact with, right? If it's not the live stream, maybe it's my fault, because that's, oh, okay, it is working. I see that. All right, great. So Nick, I think we talked about multiple levels of AI machine learning and multiple levels of workforce that will benefit from AI machine learning. Not all of them are same, but some of the applications here, as you can tell, are very well known at this point, right? Cars that are driving themselves, language translations. Um, there's so many possibilities behind it, right? And I'm trying my best to, cover as many topics as possible. So what I would like to request at this point is anybody who wants to listen in on a specific topic, feel free to reach out, put that on the comment, put that on the message. Let me know in my inbox that, hey, this topic is very interesting. Would you cover it? And I'm here for that. I'm presenting a solution for the newcomers to say, how do I engage with AI machine learning? What is that I need to know? What are some of the details? Give me that synopsis of what it is that I need to know, and how do I get started today? Because it takes some time. It's not buy it off the shelf and start using it tomorrow, and then all of a sudden you have a mass use case for it, right? It takes some time. It just gives them, not only just designing and developing, but just to have the soul search of, how ethical is it? How secure is it? What sort of security concerns do I have? Cybersecurity concerns, right? Nick is a cybersecurity guy here. What sort of privacy concerns do I have? So even though you know of all these applications of machine learning, you still have to consider the facts that there's so much more to consider, and it's always good to brainstorm with the right subject matter expert on the topic. So, if you have somebody like me or Nick to discuss with, let us know, engage with us, and then we'll try to get you on the right path, right? Because when you're designing your product, you have to ask yourself the question that, am I looking at this for predictive analytics only, right? Because predictive analytics is great. It's great to have. It's not for all use cases, but to develop predictive analytics and ignoring all the other capabilities, is what I meant earlier about you'll have to have multiple AIs that are working together in order to provide a great user experience. So predictive analytics is great. It's a narrow sort of AI, but you want to be able to interact with voice AI if that's necessary. How do you have prompt that is not typed in on a computer, rather spoken, right? Just like you would ask the chat GPT, just like you ask your YouTube right now to show you a video using voice command. Well, YouTube has voice command for YouTube, but how do you interact with your predictive analytics using your voice command? So that way your users are able to do the same, right? And these kind of sort of languages have to be trained. They have to be trained with right amount of data, right sort of data, and data that is sourced ethically, right? There's easy to take any data from internet, but not, do it ethically. Yeah, there's some concerns behind that. But as you can tell, there's NLP AI. Nick mentioned earlier about network analysis, but look at the sentiment analysis, right? These sentiment analysis are highly available, but you have to train your system to understand how to use Microsoft sentiment analysis for your business process, right? You have to have the capability of having a person who's very versed into the AI machine learning world to understand how to engage with sentiment analysis that Microsoft provides for your business, right? I would say number one, you have to find somebody within your team that can do the work. But if not, train them up. Let them know how to, engage with the sentiment analysis AI from Microsoft, so that way they can tweak that sentiment analysis for your business purposes. I'm going a little bit fast, but I hope you understand because this is the end of the hour. So thank you for anybody who joined the call. And, John, thank you so much for your comments. And I think Ton is here as well. Thanks for your comment. If you've enjoyed this, please, put out a comment or reshare it and post it. Share with your friends who might be interested in these kind of topics and learn and benefit from it, right? Like I said, this is free weekly webinars that I'm presenting with my friends like Nick, to bring awareness into the AI machine learning. Nick?
Definitely. Well, yeah, I mean, this was a great session. Hopefully the viewers, got some good insights, of course, from my cyber, examples and things like that. Again, thank you for having me. I'd be happy to stick by, and if there's any questions, that come up, I'd be happy to give my input on them. But either way, thanks for having me. I'll check on the comments, and we could talk about it a little bit more for a few minutes, as needed.
Yeah. While we have some time, let's wait for comments to come in. But Nick, if you don't mind me asking, what sort of things are you working on these days, right? And how does AI fit into that? Like, do you see any linkages, potential possibilities with AI and what it is that you're working on today? I know
Yeah,
drones was one of the topics that we discussed.
I was just about to bring that up. So, when I say AI with drones, of course, I'm not doing the AI stuff with drones, but in the drone space, drones have become a really popular item to where you could use them for multiple activities. So, of course, you have your traditional pictures and videos. So, you go on a trip, you don't have someone to hold the camera, but you throw up your drone, you get a nice shot, right? There have been a lot of advances in the drone world to where they're being used for security assessments. And I say that in a general term to where you could fly it high, you could see if there's any damages to a building that, again, would interfere with the architect and become a security concern, or look for any possible avenues to where they might have a fence everywhere, but what if there's a damage area where someone could, cross over? Then they could use that to identify it and, of course, fix it. There's advances to where they even have drones with thermal cameras on there to where you could use a drone and compare to manually. If you did a manual drone field, not drone field, infrared thermal camera inspection on solar panels, that could take days, if not maybe week or weeks, depending on how large this is. But with drones, I mean, you could do it within minutes or an hour, really quick. And you could identify broken solar panels and, of course, replace those for these solar farms. And most recently, I want to say they're being used for first responder activities. So, of course, if there is a active shooter, for example, or someone that's barricaded, instead of sending in a SWAT team and clear a room and have the possibility to get shot, they could have a drone go in there and look for the person. And again, they could even have a thermal camera on there to look around and see, oh, this person's hiding in a bush, whatever the case may be. And I mention this because AI is being used where you could track individuals. And when I say that, there's a drone manufacturer called Skydio, and they are really marketing their stuff to where their drones could track you, of course, for a fun aspect, right? Not to like attack you or anything like that. Where you could be biking, skiing, whatever the case may be, and say, "Hey, track me," and tap your person. And while you go down the mountain, the drone will follow you and get good, views and stuff. So while it's limited, again, it is really hard to have this happen because if you can imagine, piloting in general has been a manual activity for some time. And now you're telling me I could buy a drone where I could do whatever it is, whatever activity, whatever fun thing it is, and have it record or take pictures of everything I do. That's insane. Along with if you have to do, again, you're doing an assessment or you're reviewing a certain area, you're doing a mapping of a field, you could have AI go in there to where you know that you're going to go over this certain plot of area at this elevation, take pictures every second or two, and make a big 3D sculpture. Doing that manually, I would say would be almost impossible. But now there's AI being used to where it can stitch the pictures together and make a very accurate 3D modeling to where you could understand how much dirt is in a certain area and track progress of like a construction site. There's just so much in that world, and it just gets me excited because again, you could use it for a lot of fun and interesting concepts.
Yeah, I think the eVTOL, electric vertical takeoff vehicles, they've been talking about this for the last however many years, but I think for the last 5 years, they've done amazing amount of work at it. The investment has certainly gone up to a point where they're actually having lots of use cases that are being displayed. Adopting, I don't know how fast the adoption process is happening, but if you think about it, identifying and labeling and making decisions instantaneously that raises the stake higher when you have an eVTOL flying in the air and have to contact with a bird and then swing itself away from the bird's path, right? You have cars, car crashes. Well, you have lots of safety mechanisms, but you cannot have an eVTOL dropping out of 5,000 feet in the sky because the bird crashed into it, right? So it's highly sensitive, where the drones are perfect use cases for how safe it can be while it's flying and it's able to identify and move itself away from the objects or obstacles in front of it. I think one of the ones that I've seen with drone is that the drones, I mean, it's a very insidious case, but the drone was able to follow a person through a wooded area, right? As in like inside of a forest, I would say. And did it in very dystopian like ways. I think it was in China that it shot the videos of the drones, is flying through the bamboo trees and chasing after like 4 or 5 different individuals. And it looked very insidious. I don't think that was their purpose, but it just came off that way. But if you think about that drone use case and then you take that to the eVTOL, that's what we need for the future, right? Ultimately, that's what we need for the future because first of all, it's electric, right? So flying and taking off, that you want to reduce the commute from, say, New York to Virginia, right? How do you rely on eVTOL to get you there faster, but without running into an obstacle or running into an object like a bird? That'll be a nuisance like to have, and drones are creating those perfect test environment to say, how do we create a bigger version of these drones like eVTOL and have it perform without a flaw, right, with least amount of errors. Very, very interesting stuff. Drone image, drone audio, drone driving itself around or flying itself around. I think all of these combined is a very interesting use case for AI machine learning.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I think one of the reasons why in the aeronautical industry for actual planes, I think that's harder for a few aspects. Of course, safety is the number one concern. So what's interesting is with the FAA, a drone is considered the same as an airplane, right? If you shoot down a drone, it's the same as shoot down an airplane, and you'll have the same consequences for that. So while a drone is smaller and cheaper and in theory easier to test because again you could do this in your own house, when it comes to actual bigger planes, that's going to be harder to test because one, there's a lot more space, there's a lot more engineering that's involved with just making the design of the plane because you have to have the ratio of how big is your battery pack, how much does it weigh. We have to have this much. Space for cargo if you want to have cargo in it. Again, there's all these features that have to go into there. Then okay, you have that figured out. Well, you have to have a test area where there's so many, and I don't know them specifically, but you have to have a lot of space, a lot of safety precautions for these test flights because you don't want it in a big city. You don't want it exploding in midair and crashing and killing a bunch of people or doing a lot of damage. You want to have it in a remote place, and even then, there's concern about okay, well, what's involved in this plane? What can be exposed? Because if it explodes, for example, right, you're going to have a lot of poisonous or toxic chemicals potentially being released into the area. So all those people could develop, long-term medical conditions. For example, the burn pits. I say it like that because batteries are being chucked into the burn pits, and people are like, oh, it's okay. And then we find out years later, oh, well, that's not good. It's causing all these health issues. So when it comes to testing on a larger scale on these larger planes, it's definitely harder to do that versus a smaller drone. Not only that, the cost wise, with these drones or planes in general, I mean, it could be thousands, if not millions of dollars. A drone could be up to $1,000. It's a lot more cost effective for someone to test a $1,000 drone than a couple $1 million aircraft. But that's that's just my insight to that.
Oh no, I just got you just reminded me I got to sign up for my burn pit because they sent me a message the other day saying fill this out for your burn pit exposure. So I might have to go find out what sort of exposures that I have that is causing all those other issues. But yeah, I think the possibilities are we're just scratching the surface at this point, right? eVTOLs, use cases, it probably doesn't, impact or imply to everybody, right? Back in 80s or close to 90s, there was a helicopter service that will fly over Hudson River from New Jersey to New York on a daily basis to provide people transport from New Jersey to New York, and it crashed, and accident happened, and that's how it shut down. Like that service is no longer taking people from New Jersey and dropping them off on top of the 50th floor. Is dropping them off by the side of the river away from the buildings, right? So if you ever go to New York and you go to the Intrepid Museum, you will see all those helicopter landing next to the museum because that's where people come in from New Jersey is flying into Manhattan, right? Yeah, I think the adjustment will happen. These tests will go through the process of how do we do better, how do we evaluate these, and how do we keep people safe, infrastructure safe. That's why I always like to discuss all the different type of use cases, the spectrum of use cases, because we tend to fall for what's very cheap and what's very possible when it comes to hardware, because the hardware is the first tool that we go after, right? But I say, well, let's reverse engineer that a little bit. Let's just start with the software. How do we design these in the simulated environment, and how do we create those environment where you're not really testing out in the real world until you're very sure in simulated environment that you have done your due diligence, right? And once you do get to the hardware point, you haven't spent millions, but you have spent a few $100,000 in that simulated environment, right? So that's cost saving. So I think by the time we talked about eVTOL and drone, by the time I reverse engineer it, I'll be back to just saying get access to the cloud, find some data, and push those data together and try to create a simulation where you're able to detect your use case and its possibilities before you ever buy the actual drone. Even if it costs a few $1,000. I mean, there's always those use cases, right? What can you do and what's possible? I always start with the minimal software-based capability rather than jump right into the hardware, because hardwares are like those shiny things on top of the mountain. Everybody wants to get there right away, but there's some work behind it. You got to climb the mountain one step at a time, but start with the data that you already have and how clean and structured out of this data, and how much you can do inside of a laptop instead of just start going out there and doing all this crazy experiment, is my first suggestion. So with that, Nick, I think we don't see any questions. If you do have any questions, if you need any answers that you're looking to find solutions for, please feel free to reach out, and we will see you guys next week. Thanks, Nick.
Thanks again for having me. Thanks everyone for attending and giving me your questions. I'll be happy to attend a future event if you want me to. So just reach out and I'd be happy to do that. Again, thanks for having me.
We'll do specifically one for drone. That'd be awesome.
Oh, that would be fun. I'll have a lot of fun with that.
Take care, Nick. Thanks.
All right. Cheers. Bye.
Cheers.